Hi, Bruce Johnson here, and welcome to the Wired to Grow show, where we interview successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and subject matter experts in order to help you figure out how you can grow a more scalable and successful business. Our sponsor today is Double It Plan. If you want to figure out how to grow your business, double it in the next 12, 24, or 36 months, go to doubleitplan.com, doubleitplan.com, and you too can learn how you can get your business on a double or triple digit growth curve. Our guest today is going to be Gray Somerville, and if you don't know Gray is a great entrepreneur here in South Carolina, in Charleston. He started a company back in 2000 called Logical Systems. He bootstrapped it with a co-founder, and it's grown into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, and they now have over 85 employees. In addition, after he caught the entrepreneurial bug, he then started helping mentor some other entrepreneurs in the area, and that started an entrepreneur boot camp a couple years ago, which is also sometimes referred to in our area as 365 days to launch. And out of that, he once again caught the bug, and he's now started a new startup, which is called LaunchPath Innovation. And he'll tell us a little bit about that. So it means we have both a successful entrepreneur and someone who's in a startup at the same time with us today. So Gray, welcome to the Wired to Grow show.
Thank you, Bruce. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about it, and we're looking forward to it. And before we dig in, just to kind of give people an idea of what Logical is, why don't you kind of explain to somebody in kind of in lay fashion the technical thing that you guys do?
Sure, absolutely. Well, our clients are the nation's largest wireline communications companies. So that includes companies like Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, companies
Right.
like that. Their challenge is that they are in a market that's kind of flat or declining across most of the products that they sell, and at the same time, competition really is only becoming more intense. So they have to find more and more clever ways to acquire and retain customers in that environment. And we help them do that with a marketing system that we innovated that's called competition-aware marketing. And in a nutshell, we maintain a database of all of the competitive offers in the market. We wrap a lot of technology around that, and then we infuse our clients' marketing campaigns and platforms with real-time, dynamic, competitive intelligence that helps them, sell their customers and retain their customers.
And it gets pretty granular, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, yes, it really does. The data goes down to the zip code level in terms of its geographic specificity, and it really captures every conceivable element of the service that you buy from one of these providers. So you're not only talking about what is your internet speed and number of channels, but every channel that you're offered, every feature that comes with your service, all the nitty-gritty details of the pricing. And so by taking that data, structuring it, putting it into a very sophisticated business intelligence system, we're able to do some really cool things to, sometimes it's not always apparent to the customer, because it might be that it's just providing kind of back-end intelligence whether our client should even make an offer. Should their online ad pop in this particular context or not, or is it really a waste of their advertising dollar to do that? But if it is, how can they message their offer to the greatest effect, and so forth? So it really ends up kind of permeating the entire marketing system of our clients in some really very, very interesting ways.
Right. So if someone's trying to say, check our blazing fast speeds, and you're only at 8 megabytes,
That's
and
right.
the competitor's at 25, it says, don't do that, right?
That's right. Exactly. That would be a great example.
And one of the phrases you guys coined, I guess, or used, I hadn't heard it before, is Competify. What does that mean?
Well, it's a marketing consultant coined that phrase for us as just a word to kind of capture our clients' imagination, but they've got very, very sophisticated and very elaborate marketing systems, programs that they are running, And using Tological, they can bring a competitive edge to all that. And our coin term for that experience is to competify whatever part of their marketing we're talking about.
I love the word.
Yeah, good,
So,
good. Yeah,
okay, so let's go back to 2000. You're working for another company,
right,
and you catch the entrepreneurial bug, and you say, "Hey, let's start a new company." What were
right,
the precipitating events that got you to make that jump?
right. Yeah, that's a great question. Um, let's see. I would say kind of, I was a history major in college, which has
Hmm.
nothing to do with the answer to your question, except that as a history major, we learned about precipitating causes versus like secondary causes, right?
Hmm.
So there were some secondary causes that had been in the background for a while. I was a husband and father of two children who had to put food on the table.
Right.
And since I was a history major, that wasn't a real straightforward proposition for how to do that, right?
Right.
So I had been after kind of spending my first 7 years out of college working for various nonprofit organizations, I entered the business world as a 30-year-old
Hmm.
and was, knew nothing about business at that time, but was trying to figure out how do I make a living in the business world. And so early on, I'd kind of observed that I could either be an entrepreneur or I could essentially go back to night school and get an electrical engineering degree and an MBA, which in the industry that I kind of landed in were prerequisites to really get onto the career ladder.
Hmm.
And so entrepreneurship, in one sense, just seemed like a shorter route to the cheese for me,
Right.
to be very candid. Probably, I also felt like it was well matched with my understanding of just where my strengths were.
Hmm.
I had always been um, entrepreneurial, even though it had never been in a business context. I had been a person who had created a lot of things and initiated and led a lot of things. And
A typical INTJ.
yeah, yeah, there you go, there you go. So,
By the
so
way, full disclosure, I know Gray. We've had this conversation.
I think I'm ENTJ rather than
Okay.
INTJ,
Oh, I feel sorry
uh,
for you.
yeah, but but anyway, so so that was kind of in the background. When the first real company that I worked for, that was kind of the beginning of my business career, had actually been a complete disaster of a failure there. I mean, it
Hmm.
took 3.5 years for me to get fired, but it was kind of beginning on day one. But I did learn some things while I was there, and one of those was that I wanted to eventually be an entrepreneur, and I'd kind of staked out a broad sort of specification for what that would look like. One, I knew that it was going to be in the telecommunications industry because
Hmm.
that was the only practical,
Experience.
thing about the real world that I knew. Second was that it was going to have something to do with information. I just had a passion for
Hmm.
data and research and that sort of thing. And
Right.
the third thing, I knew that it was going to be B2B as opposed to B2C. And
Hmm.
that was just from observing the guy who had founded this very successful company that I first started working for. He was able to kind of bootstrap it on his first contract.
Right.
And I thought that was a smart way to kind of get into business. So that's all that I knew,
Hmm.
at that point. But I started looking for jobs that would kind of take me one step closer to that mountaintop, and I found an opportunity with a company that was a market research company in the telecommunications industry. So that kind of checked off a
Hmm.
couple of my boxes. And they were hiring a business development person, which I had had no prior sales experience or anything
Hmm.
like that. And I thought, well, this is great. I will, all of those things take me a lot closer to what I want to do. So I went to work for this company, which turned out to be the worst managed company I've ever been exposed to, and I won't tell more about that. But it was a real
But if
mess.
they go to your LinkedIn profile, they can find out about it.
Well, I don't think so. I
Just
don't think
kidding.
so. I hope not. I, uh, I wouldn't want to do any harm there, but it was a real mess. in an odd way, it turned out to be a great thing for me. And it's something I have reflected on. But I'm a real, I love to support and mentor people who've
Mm-hmm.
worked with me and around me. I mean, and when I think about how I actually grew and developed, I think I got my most learning from my worst bosses, either out
Right.
of just neglect or because I was just trying to, get back at them in some way by proving what I could do. Um, so anyway, I was in a situation where basically for this job, I got zero training, zero orientation. I was given a desk with a computer and this broad challenge that there was a whole new set of companies that had come along due to some regulatory changes. I won't go into all the boring details, but in the telecommunications industry, there was this thing called the Telecommunications Act of 1996.
Mm-hmm.
It opened up a lot of investment. And this new group of companies called Competitive Local Exchange Carriers were coming into the market. The company that I work for currently did no business with those, and the owner thought there might be an opportunity there. And he basically hired me to try to develop something in that space. But other than saying, here's a whole category of companies that I think we might be able to kind of regurgitate all of this research that we have around here and sell some sort of syndicated information service. That was kind of all the support and instruction that I got. And so I was very successful at developing a whole new brand within that company
Mm-hmm.
and this line of syndicated services that in the space of about a year and a half, I acquired 20 accounts. And the mother, the company that I was working with was maybe about a $10 million a year company. And I grew my part of it to about $2 million a year in the space of less than 2 years. So that was an exciting success story there, and kind of the combination of with so little support, having such success, and then working for a company that was so dysfunctional kind of gave me a lot of incentives, both positive and negative, to kind of get out on
Mm-hmm.
my own. So that sort of got me to the place where I felt like, I think I could actually do this, even though at the time I was 35 years old. I had a wife, had two children. I was the sole provider for my family and had almost no resources in the. I drove like a 1983 Toyota Tercel that I'd bought for $1,000. I lived in our very first starter home that was like less than 1,200 square feet of livable space, and I mean, we were not in a good position financially, but I felt very confident that I could kind of get out and make it work if I could scrape together 3 months worth of living expenses, which was basically the starting business plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the idea of starting something and the reality of starting that are two radically different
Right.
things.
Yeah.
So once you made that jump over, what were
Right.
some of the surprises for you?
Well, let's see. It was really funny. My partner and I mean, first, you just cannot imagine how naive and inexperienced we both were in the world of business. I had my history major from my little liberal arts college. He was like I forget what he majored in college, but I know he had an art history minor and something equally esoteric as his
The
major.
perfect making for an
Yeah.
entrepreneurial team.
Yeah, we just didn't know any better, and so we had spent months sort of developing this business plan, but our business plan was sort of based on having read a lot of companies that were going public. We'd read the prospectuses or whatever the plural of
Mm-hmm.
that word is, and and if you read those things, it's just all this puffery,
Right.
like very light on the details of and all the financial stuff was a total mystery to us. I don't think either one of us could have created like a pro forma financial forecast, and we honestly did not know that that was part of a business plan. It was
Mm-hmm.
just sort of like we were both really good word guys, and so it was pure poetry to read how we were going to transform and revolutionize and this and that, all these different emerging industries and on and on and on. But the reality was we had nothing to sell, and that honestly did not completely sink into me until the very first day. We had resigned from our day jobs, put in our notice, going to leave on a Friday. We had leased a 10 by 10 windowless rent by the month office in Washington, D.C. So on Monday, we'd spent the weekend kind of moving our furniture in there. Monday was the first day that we could get in, like hook up phone lines and stuff like that. So it was about 11 o'clock on the Monday, August 21st, 2000, that finally he had his little, used IKEA desk in one corner. I had my used desk that I'd borrowed from a friend in another corner. We actually had the phone working. We had the internet. We were in business. And I literally picked up the phone. I had a real Rolodex at that time and quite a few contacts that I developed in the telecom industry. I, rolled to a contact and was literally dialing the number of my first sales call. When I looked over at my partner and said, "What was it again exactly that we're selling?" And
you can't make this stuff up. That's what I say.
Headlights look, and I hung up the phone, and our conference room consisted of these two beach chairs that he had brought in that was set up in a corner. He said, "Quick, to the conference room." So we went and sat in our beach chairs with a pad of paper, and we started just brainstorming, things that we could put into a business proposal for one of these people. So probably, in the next few hours, we had this first idea, which was, in the telecommunications industry, we knew that pricing intelligence overall was a problem, and we knew that for companies that were selling to commercial clients, if you're AT&T and you're selling to logical systems, that was a particularly opaque market. Nobody really knew what everybody else's prices were. But we also knew that the people who had that information were the actual salespeople out in the field. If you are a commercial telecom salesperson, you're talking to customers all day long, and they often are sharing maybe a copy of their current invoice or the quote that they just got from the competitor or whatnot. But the pricing decisions were made in the corporate office, and they had no way of collecting all of this competitive intelligence from their distributed sales force. So our very first idea was kind of basically an information management solution where we would get in there and kind of manage the collection of these competitive intelligence documents from your B2B sales team, and then tabulate all of this competitive pricing data and provide that back to the corporate pricing people so that they could analyze it and make decisions. So that was, by that afternoon, I was making sales calls with that proposition, and that was where we
no product developed yet.
Oh, no. And my advice to everyone is, don't worry about the product. Get the order, and the product will follow. But so started.
Aren't you glad they didn't ask for a demo?
Well, yeah. Well, so that's a funny story. So my partner, the other surprise was that neither one of us had any technical background or experience at all.
This is hilarious. Okay, I know you. I haven't heard this story. It's really funny.
Okay, well, so neither one of us had any experience of that at all. And truly, I want to say again, on day one, surprise number one was we had no product to sell. Surprise number two was that the way that my partner thought that he should spend his time was working on our software product. And I said, "What are you talking about, software product? Neither of us know a thing about software. I don't see how we're going to develop software products and sell them to these very sophisticated telecommunications clients." But he was really insistent that, we needed to be a technology company. I thought it was crazy, but we were kind of in that stage of our relationship where we were too polite to, kind of like say, "I think you're crazy." So he started doing his thing, and I'll tell you, my partner, Ken Archer, is a person that, given time and access to the right library, can literally do anything in this world. And he believes that about himself. He is convinced that there's a book out there somewhere with the answer, and he can read and understand anything and apply it. So he basically hit the books, and he ended up developing a prototype of this pricing intelligence system that was all made out of just an Access database. All right, but he
Amazing.
was able to put something together. We ended up convincing. I probably shouldn't name names because it might embarrass the client to know what they were buying, but a major telecommunications company. And we got a meeting with these people. And, this was a stage where we had so little money to spend that for us to make a sales trip out, halfway across
Right.
the country to go call on the corporate headquarters of a client. There's a whole other funny aspect of the way that we used to do those trips. So anyway, we got there, we came into the meeting, and we did our demo. And we had no idea what to expect. But when we got there, it was like a big group. We're in a huge conference room. There are probably a dozen people, gathered in this. So all the suits are there, sitting around the thing, and we're projecting this thing up on the screen and going through our demo. And I'm thinking, just this is it. This is that moment that I have been waiting for, knowing was coming my whole life long, that they're finally going to, you know, the man behind the mask is going to be revealed, and we're just going to be laughed out of here. Pull back the scene from The Wizard of Oz,
Right.
the
The
man behind the
curtain.
curtain, right? And so we go through it, we conclude our demo, and there's like this, 3 seconds of just pure silence. And I'm thinking, oh no.
Which felt like an
And
hour.
this big guy at the head of the table pushes back and he says, "Guys, that was awesome." and and by I don't know how long, I mean, like within a week or so, we got our first contract for an actual technical product. So now that we actually were, getting some traction with this idea, I found a friend of mine that I'd worked with in the first company that I'd been with, who was an actual software engineer. We were able to talk him into trading time for equity in our company, and he took the prototype and turned it into a real product, and that kind of became the beginning of our technical, the technical side of this company. People always expect me to be able to, like, fix their remote control or something like that because I work in a technical company. But the truth is, I know very little about technology. I think I know pretty much now about business and how to make a business in a technical industry. My partner, Ken Archer, has gone on to be a legitimate technologist, and thankfully he has been supported as the years have gone by with a growing tribe of really smart people. But it was very humble beginnings for the technical side of Telogical, for sure.
Yeah. Now, you guys chose to bootstrap your company for a number of reasons.
We had no other options. That
Exactly.
would be reason number one. Right.
But working with entrepreneurs, like everybody nowadays says, hey, you need to go out and get outside funding, blah, blah, blah. So if someone comes to you at your entrepreneur boot camp and says, should I bootstrap or should I try to raise capital?
Yeah.
What's your general answer to them?
Well, I mean, I think the right answer is it depends. I think for the vast majority of people, though, most of the people who are asking that question don't have a realistic hope of actually getting funding.
Right.
I mean, that's just the fact. And I would say if you have the option of building your business without getting funding, then you should avoid it like the plague.
Exactly.
If you look at sort of the way that a business develops, and particularly a highly innovative business, if I could just kind of, make a observation that I think all business models can roughly be kind of categorized as conventional or innovative. And conventional isn't a bad word. It just means you are pursuing a path that you have some reasonable understanding of how it's actually going to work and what are the drivers of success and so forth. with innovative, and they're kind of differing degrees of innovative, but with a radically innovative product, you just simply do not know until the product is in the market what in the world is going to happen. Whether there's actually going to be a customer for that product, and kind of how all the different dynamics of your business will work out. If you're going into that innovative space, where capital really makes sense is once you have the business model working.
Right.
If I build a little money machine that every dollar I put in at the top generates $1.20 out the bottom, then finding a capitalist to pour, millions of dollars in the top makes sense. If I have a completely unvalidated, unverified idea, and this thing, I have no idea how it's going to make money or if it makes money, then it doesn't really make that much sense for the capitalist to get involved. And so I think, the smart entrepreneur tries to find ways to validate the business model at extremely low cost. And that's where a lot of what's been learned over the past 10 years about how to do innovative entrepreneurship is, some really clever ideas about building minimum viable products and so forth that kind of stretch the imagination for how to really, how to get in the market at a low cost.
Yeah. What do you think somebody misses out by not bootstrapping?
Well, I've never had the experience, so I'm hypothesizing here. But if I came to you and I said, "Hey, Bruce, I'm Gray Somerville. I'm the smartest businessman in town, and I've got the smartest idea, and all I need from you is $1 million to kind of go make it happen," and you signed on for that, I think I would. There's a real risk that just right from the beginning, I would fail to look at the business with the same kind of appreciation for, just, just the risk and the money that you have when it is your own money.
Exactly.
I mean, my latest company, I could have put a lot more money into it than I did. I am funding this company for a $10,000 seed fund is the amount that I have. That's kind of where I drew the line that I was willing to put in as just kind of pure speculative cash. And I could have done quite a bit more than that. But I can say that even with just a $10,000 bet on the table, it's remarkable how tight I am with everything. Our website, I built it all myself using Wix because I didn't want to pay somebody else to do something that I thought I could kind of figure out on my own. And you could say, well, that's really kind of inefficient. I mean, all those hours that you spent sort of trying to figure out how to, make a little formatting thing in this website builder, you could have been, developing the product or selling the product or something like that. But again, in the early stages, all of that stuff is kind of integrated. When you are making a decision about, fonts and images to put into your website, you're really making decisions about the business, about what's going to be the voice of your business and what's going to be the brand of your business. And, you're sort of working out in your mind. You've got your brain is kind of getting wired to understand how to sell your product. And I just think all of that is actually very, very valuable in, figuring out your business. And it's, I think bootstrapping is an awesome way to go.
Absolutely. Now, when you started making your first couple hires, and you most entrepreneurs I talk to, probably around 8 or 10, you just realize the world's changing.
Yeah.
And then, you get to 15, 20 employees. How do you think you began to change at some of those gaps? Because you probably had that change there, maybe 25 or 30, then over 50. As you kind of look at the evolution of Gray, the leader, how have you changed in those different stages? What did you have to learn?
Yeah, we were probably uncharacteristic in that the combination of my founding partner and I mean, and I don't know how much of this to blame on myself and how much to blame on him, but we sort of ran our company like IBM on day one. we were very policy and procedure kind of oriented in an uncharacteristic way.
With
When
two
you
of
think
you.
about, yeah, yeah. And so, like, when it came
So
to,
what was that like when you said, well, did you consult the policy?
we didn't necessarily have a manual, but like things like taking time off. You know, we wanted to run our company in a very professional, kind of policy-driven way. We always wanted to. There's a real, kind of stewardship value for both of us,
Mm-hmm.
and, that we did not want to take each other's time lightly and
Mm-hmm.
money and so forth. So, I mean, we kept track of expenses and would, there was very little of like, oh, hey, it's the people's money, just throw it in the pot and we'll all take out of it what we need to and so forth. So we had a very structured kind of mentality going into it that honestly, I think at first our challenge was sort of loosening up and learning how to be a startup in a
Interesting.
kind of as I say, you don't often
Right.
hear that story, but there was a little bit of that. We definitely went through stages where, just having to kind of, you're adding people and you're having to sort of learn how to uh, extend your decision making and um, your values and so forth out broader and broader into the organization. I I think that I don't really remember there being huge challenges with, I don't remember kind of major inflection points where I was like, wow, we went through a huge change in that. One thing that was a really great thing that happened early on about it, Ken Archer and I were the two original founders of the company. I was the CEO of the company. A year and a half in, we recruited a friend of mine who was a legitimate businessman. Neither
Mm-hmm.
Ken nor I, had any
Right.
kind of experience. We recruited him to join us, and for the first year and a half that he was with us, so up to year three, I was still the CEO. But then I handed off the CEO role from myself to Andrew Westner. And uh, Andrew was he's always been just the right guy for that
Mm-hmm.
job. He's been the perfect sort of balance point between Ken and me. And he's just a great leader, a really smart, capable, good person that everybody trusts and looks up to. So that was kind of a big deal. More recently, there's been an interesting thing at Tological where I would say that for years and years, most of the heavy lifting sort of strategically and so forth was still coming from the three managing partners of the company. And just recently, like within the past year, I think we've really made a breakthrough of kind of allowing this fantastic group of younger
Mm-hmm.
leaders within our company kind of to take charge of that. We've benefited. I don't know if you've ever heard of OKRs, objectives and key
Mm-hmm.
results. It's a management technique that's been popularized by Google, but we've really benefited from that. And there are different tools and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot that are out there to kind of help create that alignment in the organization. But it's been for us. We're a 15-year-old company. We're only 85 employees, so we've never gone through the kind of wildly explosive growth that just we've had a little time to evolve as we've gone along, I guess is the way to put it.
Right. Although
Yeah.
there aren't that many 85 employee companies in Charleston.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So it's still
It's,
a pretty good success story.
yeah, yeah,
Now, you were talking about the fact that your first clients were all big companies.
yeah.
So when you're talking to entrepreneurs about selling to large companies, what
Mhm.
are some of the things that they just don't get about the difference between selling to a small mom and pop kind of company versus selling to a Verizon, Comcast, et cetera?
The number one thing that I observe in talking to entrepreneurs is that they way overestimate the difficulty of selling to a Fortune 500 company. they're intimidated, at the thought of calling on Walmart or calling on, some major brand,
Mm-hmm.
Nike or something like that. And I find that very, very frequently I am talking to an entrepreneur who has an idea, and their approach to it is to kind of just nibble around the edges of this big market, try to sell kind of onesies and twosies to consumers or people kind of far out on the edges. When where the money is really with the Fortune 500 company. I just find myself saying, it's not really that hard. These are just people too. And I think that in a lot of ways, I've now had the experience of, Telogical. Really, there are probably only 20 companies that we could sell our stuff to at Telogical, and they're all in the Fortune 500. Launchpath, the target customer for Launchpath are companies with 10 to 500 employees. And so here in the past 6 months, I have had face-to-face meetings with at least 50 different, businesses that range in that size.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's really surprising to me is that it's, I mean, in some ways, the smaller companies, you're talking to the owner in a
Right.
lot of cases, who in many cases is more sophisticated than the buyer that you'd be speaking to, the Fortune 500 company. Not always, but in plenty
Right.
of cases they are. And they're certainly a heck of a lot more invested in that decision. If you are, if you are like middle management in a Fortune 500 company and somebody calls you up and they are an entrepreneur of an exciting new startup that's trying to do something cool, I mean, it's a good day for you to just get to talk to that person instead of all of the other corporate gnomes that you got to spend your time with. And and there's a huge receptivity to to working with entrepreneurs. It's you got to remember that there's just kind of a human element, and what would it be like for you if every day, I mean, you can be the senior director of whatever and come in and work at a cubicle in one of these buildings and sit through endless meetings and all of this sort of thing, and the idea to get to work on something innovative, the idea to get to be part of somebody's story who is building something, to be their
Mm-hmm.
first client, that doesn't appeal to everybody, but there is somebody in all of these large companies that's going to kind of pull on a heartstring.
Resonate
And I
with.
would say, just put it out there, I mean, be polite, be professional, but don't be afraid to get out and tell your story to the big boys, because you'll find a lot more receptivity than you might think.
Right. Plus, the small business owner thinks that that's still my money,
Yeah, yeah,
so they're more vested than the person at the big company. It's not their money.
that's right. Yeah, and at a Fortune 500 company, anything under $50,000 is, is it's pretty easy to find that kind of money for a project, even if it goes absolutely nowhere. I mean, we've had clients that have spent $1 million in a year kind of trialing things with us that they later pulled the plug on and didn't really think twice about it. I mean, it was no big deal to them that they had wasted $1 million kind of playing around with something. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah.
Now, what you guys do is about competitive intelligence, right? Competitive advantage kinds of stuff. So when you're working with entrepreneurs and you're trying to explain to them that they have to figure out how to differentiate themselves and how to begin to explain competitive advantage, what are some of the common mistakes that you see with entrepreneurs trying to differentiate what they're doing from what their competitors are?
Hmm. Let me think about that. I, I'm not sure that, just like off the top of my head, there isn't like, oh yeah, here are the three mistakes that people always make. If I can kind of, the common mistake that I see entrepreneurs making is they're not looking at the world through the customer's perspective at all. What they're thinking about is their product. For whatever
Mm-hmm.
reasons, you know, by a long shot, the most common way for somebody to kind of start entrepreneuring begins with a vision for a product, as opposed to a vision for a customer with a problem that they would, pay money to get solved. And so if you can, my number one piece of advice for an entrepreneur is start by thinking about the customer. And I think there are a lot of different things that you can do to sort of tease out a niche within a given market and to tease out different problems that that niche is experiencing. But if you can get that in mind and then think of a solution to that, you've really kind of already, almost by definition, differentiated yourself because you found a problem that did not have a good solution to begin with, something that people are really feeling some pain around that. And so just kind of training your mind to think in a customer-centric way and, to identify that problem, develop your solution around that kind of inevitably drives you towards market differentiation.
Yeah. Do you find they have a difficulty trying to quantify the differentiation?
Well, I probably haven't had a lot of discussions with entrepreneurs about exactly how they quantify that differentiation. I mean, they struggle to, to find the right way to tell their story. Maybe that's kind of what you're getting at. We all have a tendency to just sort of get locked into our own paradigms. Our business emerges in our own mind, sort of. I mean, we develop frameworks and so forth, and it takes a lot of real skill to listen to what the customer is telling you and kind of allow your current frameworks and paradigms to be broken and then to reform those to tell that story. I don't know if it'd be inappropriate for me to give a specific example, but I am a fan of a startup here in Charleston that's called oh gosh, now I'm going to drop the name. Well, I'm sorry, Bruce. I don't want to talk about them without getting all the details of their brand correct. But the general principle is they have kind of fallen in love with a name for their company that I think sort of starts the conversation with their clients a little bit on the wrong foot. It kind of positions them in one way that's not at all aligned with customers' actual interests, and it's hard to sort of let these things go. They become very cherished. You create a logo, you create a name, and it becomes very meaningful to you, even if not to your market. And so,
but at the end of the day, it's the market that matters.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Learning how to listen to that, is what it's all about. Again, I think there have been so many lessons learned and so much helpful things published on just how to get through that process here in the past 10 years. And this basic concept, I mean, if you can go into your entrepreneurial venture just recognizing that, that all of your current thoughts are just hypotheses, and that kind of the discipline of entrepreneurship is being aware of that and then developing, little kind of scientific experiments to test those hypotheses, really listening to the data that comes back from that and kind of actively reformulating your business model hypotheses. If you can get in that mindset, then you're going to figure it out from there.
That's probably a good segue into Launchpath, right?
Yeah, thanks, right?
So what was it about the lean startup and the lean canvas movement that really kind of captured your heart?
Well, I mean, I was an entrepreneur in 2000 who did not have a clue about what I was doing, and kind of learned everything in the hardest possible way. Eventually got there, and getting there was tremendously empowering. So kind of the combination of achieving something in a very, very difficult way, but that thing that you achieved was so, beyond your wildest dreams, kind of empowering, and then just wanting to share that with other people really was kind of the impetus for me starting to teach entrepreneurship and innovation. So back in 2010, I actually started offering these. On Saturdays, I would have what I called entrepreneur camp just for Tological employees. A
Okay.
lot of the people that we hired at Tological were sort of, reminded me of myself at
Mm-hmm.
27 years old. They were bright, um, liberal arts educated people who
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know what they were going to be when they grew up, and I thought maybe some of them want to be entrepreneurs, and I'll share with them what I know. So so that just passion for empowering other people, for helping them, kind of achieve sort of the breakthrough success that I had achieved was the motivation for all of that. All of the things that were, beginning with the publication of Steve Blank's books, the book, The Four Steps to the
Mm-hmm.
Epiphany, and all that kind of followed after that, it now made something that had felt sort of impossible much more possible. And you may have seen the little intro that I do for Entrepreneur Bootcamp, where I talk about the first guy to run the marathon and how that was this heroic event. And
Mm-hmm.
now something like 500,000 people ran a marathon last year.
Roger
Something that
Bannister.
Yeah, right. So something that at one time felt impossible, kind of
Right.
beyond human achievement, is now there's literally an app for that. And so how can we make entrepreneurship, how can we make innovation much more accessible for uh, other people? And then Launchpath was basically, there's the hedgehog concept that Jim
Mm-hmm.
Collins talks about. That kind of the simple diagram for that is the Venn diagram with the three circles being a heart for your passions and a barbell for your strengths and a dollar sign for how you make money. I think we're all trying to get those three things lined up. And so, using the exact techniques that I teach in Entrepreneur Bootcamp, I begin with the heart element, which is my passion for entrepreneurship and innovation, and then developed a business model around that I thought leveraged my strengths, and that's a very exciting opportunity for me. I mean, I am just uh, absolutely enthralled by the mission of Launchpath of helping America's small and medium-sized businesses, regain their entrepreneurial swagger and start growing their companies by successfully launching new products. And
I love that phrase, swagger, by the way.
yeah, yeah. Well, I have our very first client at Launchpath is just kind of an example of a company that had lost their entrepreneurial swagger. A family-owned business that was founded 35 years ago by the father of this family and his wife, and the dad was an engineer and had a lot of vision. He's kind of a real creative person and so forth. And they got in the market and found traction and grew to like a 50 employee company. But the industry that they had found traction with went into decline. And
Mm-hmm.
so the business got passed on to a second generation. And, the family struggled. They have not had that kind of entrepreneurial gene. And to be able to go into a great company like that and help them to, once again discover how to generate new ideas, how to find market opportunities, how to kind of take the initiative rather than just sort of slowly seeing their dreams for their family business kind of seep away, is just that feels a lot better than providing even really sophisticated tools to a big Fortune 500 company that is just
Right.
sort of it's less personal, it's less emotive than when you're in helping a company like that. So
Well, and it gets to your passion.
yeah,
But what most people don't know is that if they go to your entrepreneurial boot camp, one of the things you'll tell people is you don't need to build a business around your passion.
yeah, that's for sure. Right.
Right.
Well, and I mean, your passions, you know, begin with. I mean, in my case, when I started Tological, job one was feeding my family.
Right.
Really, I mean, there was a very urgent material need that I was trying to address, and so all of that was connected to to that passion. But that's absolutely correct. That I think that sometimes passion gets hyped a little bit. Like if you just, feel enough emotion, you can make it work. And unfortunately, that's not always so. You definitely
Exactly.
bring in your left brain on the process for sure.
Now, as you've been going through the boot camps and you've been explaining the lean canvas approach,
Right.
a number of people have gone through. What parts do you think people struggle with the most about getting the whole lean canvas idea?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. This might be slicing it too thin, but just a
That's fine.
little history on the lean canvas is a term that was created by a guy named Ash Maurya, and it was kind of a second generation on the original idea of kind of reducing a business concept down to a single sheet of paper rather than a longer form business plan, and kind of articulating what are the key elements of a business so that you can kind of play around with those, like painting something on a canvas was
Right.
created by a guy now named Alex Osterwalder. Maria made some tweaks to that, and that's something called the lean canvas. Neither one of those are very good, in my opinion. Something I think is ironic is that kind of like at the epicenter of business ideation and innovation is this tool that needs to be rethought. And
Right.
I have a version of of that I think sort of makes more sense. But so one of the things I think people struggle with is they're looking at a framework that really just is not very intuitive. And so getting that in a more intuitive framework is helpful for people. But so here's what I'll say about it. Number one, the idea of beginning with, like so on my version of the business model canvas, it begins with your market. Who is the customer segment and what is their problem?
Right.
It's oriented top to bottom, with the most important thing being at the top and then kind of flowing down. So I think learning to do that is something that, again, for whatever reason, is just not intuitive to humans to start with that process. Once they kind of get that, knowing that you can, you can just start by thinking about the market without knowing what your product is going to be, and that's okay as a challenge for people to get over that. Once they kind of go through that, they start to loosen up and roll. The other thing that I would say is that a big blind spot, and this is not just for starting entrepreneurs, it's true for very established business people, but is ideas can feel really, really good until you get out your spreadsheet and start sizing the actual market opportunity. And something that I think the whole lean startup movement has done a little bit of disservice to the art of entrepreneurship is they're so strident about the evils of a business plan that nobody ever gets out the spreadsheet to develop any kind of financial model of any sort. And the argument is you can't forecast what an innovative business is going to do 5 years from now, so why waste your time on that? Which is a very good point, but the that old saying that the plan is nothing and the planning is everything.
Exactly.
You go through a disciplined process of asking yourself, okay, who exactly is my customer segment, and how many people or organizations are there in that, and how much do they budget for this problem that I'm trying to solve, and just come up with what's called the total available market. And then if you then say, my solution, I think, can realistically attract what percentage of that total available market, and even if it's a complete swag at what that is, going through that exercise and just doing the math. I mean, what I teach in Entrepreneur Bootcamp is just apply kind of orders of magnitude. Are you looking at a $10 million opportunity or a $10,000 opportunity? If you're looking at something that, when you just kind of do your back of the napkin calculation, looks like it could be a $100 million opportunity, well, then you can be badly wrong and still have a good business. Whereas if you're looking at something that feels like in the best case scenario it can make $1 million a year, it's probably not worth your time to engage it, because it's unlikely that your optimistic calculation is going to be correct.
Yeah, one of the things I liked in your boot camp was your statement: if it's not at least a $5 million idea, don't start it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And, Bruce, I've probably moderated a little bit on that. And, the Entrepreneur Boot Camp is specifically designed for people that are what I would call aspiring to be high impact entrepreneurs. The people
Mm-hmm.
who want to create companies that create a lot of jobs
Right.
and have a significant impact on the local economy or on the industry that they participate in and so forth. And I think that's a good rule of thumb for people that have that goal. I would say there are plenty of people who are out entrepreneuring with different fundamental goals and values in
Right.
mind. And I would say, you can have a good business that's smaller than that replaces your current income and gives you maybe a happier lifestyle. So I think I've probably added some nuance to just, answering the question. One of the things that's very, very helpful is to begin with an exercise of just answering the question, how would I like to eventually exit this business?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that we're all going to exit our businesses, no matter how much we love them in some form or other. Are you shooting to exit with an IPO, a public offering? Are
Mm-hmm.
you shooting to exit through a strategic acquisition that's going to make tens of millions of dollars? Are you shooting to create a really nice lifestyle business that you just get this thing running like a well-oiled machine, and you can spend 4 days of the week at the beach while somebody else kind of manages it? Are you looking to exploit your hobby, working like a dog, to replace your income, but doing something that you love? I mean, those are all valid options. I think you just have to think about what's right for you, and then make sure that your business model is aligned with that goal.
Right. And I think both of us are really passionate about putting people to work.
Yeah.
So, we're really passionate about finding entrepreneurs who want to build scalable companies, because if they build those, then we can keep communities and people employed, tax dollars. I mean, the whole thing takes off, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really powerful. If you look at the just sort of the data on the way that companies shake out, you said earlier there aren't that many companies with 85 or more employees in Charleston, and it's just shocking how the 95% of all businesses in America never exceed $1 million a year in revenue. And when you get down to companies, only 1% of all businesses in America ever exceed $7.5 million a year in revenue. So there are plenty of companies that have over 85 employees, but relative to the general population, I mean, if you're looking at maybe 5,000 firms in the Tri-County region, you're looking at only what is that, 50 of those that have, that probably have over, that are kind of Pentalogical size or bigger. So it is kind of funny how that works, which means if you can grow the companies that are going to be in that top 1%, that's where most of the jobs are generated.
Exactly. Now, you started Launchpath with a business model, and you talk about pivots and iterations.
Right.
So from where you started last July, August till now, how have you made some pivots? What has changed in the model?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's neat to be starting with a real fresh project, kind of on this side of what I've learned about entrepreneurship compared to where I started with Telogical.
Right.
I can say that the things that I'm teaching in Entrepreneur Boot Camp really do work. They're really helpful. There's a saying in software.
You do the
yeah. In the software world, they have this saying, you got to eat your own dog food, which my partner in Launchpath, Laura Knotts, likes to say. I prefer just saying practice what you preach, but it's the same concept. And so beginning with a very well-articulated business model, I mean, having firm, clear answers to who is your market segment, what are your assumptions about their problem, what is the solution that you're offering to address that problem? What's your plan for acquiring customers, for retaining and upselling customers? What are the resources and competencies you're going to need to, do all that? um, just having that very, very clearly articulated, and not only articulated, but specifically going through and kind of highlighting what are the riskiest parts of that assumption. So, number one is there really a customer that experiences this problem? And before we officially launched Launchpath, we were doing a process called problem interviews. That's one of the things I teach in the Entrepreneur Bootcamp. And, that's very, very effective to get out and find out, this basic assumption you have that people are struggling with something and might be willing to pay money to do that. That was a great opportunity to kind of learn from that. So from the very beginning and through now, there's been lots and lots of validation that the challenge of creating a new revenue stream from scratch is something that plenty of small and medium-sized businesses want to do and struggle mightily to do it. Our solution for that, we began with a concept that was we need something that's very simple and straightforward and that's affordable. Kind of simple, practical, affordable were concepts that we knew were going to be important to the small and medium business. And I would say that assumption has been validated, but the actual idea that we came up with for how to do that was sort of premised on companies having a annual recurring program where every year, twice a year, these companies were going to go through a process of harvesting their best ideas for new businesses, any of those that kind of measured up, developing those somewhat, and then starting the process of moving those forward. What we've learned is that there are a few companies within our target demographic that is a real fit for. They're looking for a program. And when you talk to those people, what you find is like creating a culture of innovation is high on their priority list. They might care more about developing their team and developing their culture than they really care about spitting out a profitable new product in the next year. For those people, that's a perfect fit. For a whole lot of the businesses in our target demographic, they are much more urgently trying to solve a revenue problem. And so it's just what is the quickest possible route to kind of get this thing up and going. And, we'll talk about a sustained program in the future, but right now we want more of a project-oriented focus. And so just recently, we actually, as of this past Friday, we kind of made a major overhaul to our website. So like all of our messaging and our actual service offering and our pricing has all changed based on that observation. And we kind of went through some quick initial success where we just happened to bump into a couple of companies that what we were selling at the beginning was a good fit, to a dry spell throughout the fourth quarter of this past year where we really felt like we were out of sync with the market, and then making this adjustment to our product, and then immediately starting this year with kind of 2 quick sales and finding that almost everybody that we're talking to were kind of, whereas we were kind of getting some blank looks in the past, it seems to be making sense to everybody. Not all of them necessarily are becoming customers, but our marketing funnel is a lot, we've got more deals, we've got a lot more active prospects, and it's kind of feeling like we've found the market again. So
yeah.
So
the good part is it works.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, and this is, of course, what everybody will tell you, what all the literature will tell you is, it's just about solving this puzzle fast enough before you run out of money. Right. And so, yeah, but that's why keeping your expenses way down and getting really good at solving the puzzle, that's what it's all about.
I just realized how long we've gone here, so I know we got to wrap up. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Last question.
Okay.
Because I know some of your passion. When you look back 15, 20 years from now, what do you hope will be the legacy that you leave here in the Charleston area?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to say something a little philosophical, is that legacy is not a huge goal of mine, just because legacy seems a little about, how will gray Somerville be remembered? And I am trying, and I think I'm halfway succeeding, and not really caring if anybody remembers Gray Somerville or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that it's exactly legacy that I'm after, but my in Sunday school this past week, our scripture that we were studying was the parable of the Good Samaritan,
Mm-hmm.
and the Good Samaritan found his mission based on just what happened to be in his path, and
Right.
that's really sort of been an orienting perspective for me for many, many years, is that it's a big world. There are all sorts of wonderful missions and wonderful things to do, but you have to just kind of look around and say, where did I land in this big chaotic mess? And the place where I landed happened to be in the world of business, and it happened to be in entrepreneurship, and it happened to be in the Charleston area. So how can I best leverage those experiences and kind of the community that I'm part of to do the most good that I can? And so to me, that's been translated into a very, very specific vision of, well, let's see, I wrote this down about, it'll be 3 years, so it would have been 2012 that I wrote it down, that in 20 years, I wanted to have a material impact on helping 20 new businesses come into existence in the Charleston area that would have an average revenue for those 20 companies of $10 million apiece, and be employing, on average 100 employees apiece. So whatever that adds up to, is that 2,000 employees, right, or something like that? Yeah. So that's the dream. That's what I'm working towards, and it's a challenge. If I do that, I will feel like a really, did a pretty good job. So
exactly, and you're on your way.
Yeah.
So, hey, great. This has been great. If somebody's really interested in the Entrepreneur Boot Camp, listening to this, what should they do? How should they find out about that?
Yeah. Okay. Word of explanation. Entrepreneur Boot Camp has always been and is still a free community service project. It used to be marketed through a little brochure site that I put up called 365 Days to Launch. You can still get there, but all of the stuff is being migrated to the Launchpath website. So your preferred route now is go to launchpathinc.com and go to the services section of that, and you'll see the link to register for the next Entrepreneur Bootcamp, which comes up in April. And again, it's completely free for anybody that's accepted into the program. So just sign up there, and we'll get the information to you, and look forward to having you in the class.
And then obviously if they want to get information about Launchpath,
right,
same URL.
That's right, launchpathinc.com.
That'd be great. Yeah. And through that, they can contact you if they need to get a hold of you personally, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Great. Hey, great. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. For those of you who are listening, hopefully you found this to be beneficial and you got a lot out of it. And also, wherever you're listening to this, whether it's iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud or whatever, make sure you subscribe. And if you can give us a rating, 5 stars always works well as we're starting out. And then make sure, if you know another business owner, entrepreneur, and you want to help them build a more scalable and successful company, tell them about this podcast. And if you need to get a hold of me, go to, wiredtogrow.com, and you can get a hold of me there. Until our next session and podcast, I wish you well. To your accelerated success, Bruce out.